Hello and welcome to another episode of KJ's Corner Season 2. It's your shortcut to let me quote this, a smarter and more automated tech career. I'm your host, Kyle John Fenton, but I go by KJ. I'm a principal solution engineer at Salesforce. We're going to dive into the world of tech, automation, technical potential. And before we dive in, you're on KJ's Corner, the I'm Breaking Into Tech, under the I'm Breaking Into Tech umbrella. Excuse me. Please feel free to like, subscribe, comment, let us know how you feel. But with me, I have CT Falk. Now I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What does CT stand for?
Oh man, that's the top secret stuff. It's my initials. So my name's Chris, but how many Chris's do you know?
Oh, tons. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I go by KJ, right? I mean, you know a ton of Kyles.
Stand out, but I mean, people years and years ago there was a show called Real World on MTV. And there was
I know. I remember CT. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah. Ever since then, people just call me CT. They're like, "That's way better than Chris." And I was like, "Fuck, I'll take it." Yeah, I'll take it.
I agree with them.
Yeah.
So this is CT Falk. He's a founder at Skrilla. He is also currently a strategic advisor. He does that part-time as well from a sales capacity. But before we get into what Skrilla is and what you're doing now, I know we've been cutting it up I'm looking at the recording. It's already at 37 minutes, but how are you, man? For everyone else who's listening, how are things? What's been going on in your world?
I've been doing good, man. Just steady, just keeping steady here in 2024. The tech industry has been a bit crazy these days. Unfortunately, like at Skrilla, for example, so Skrilla's like a sales training and organization. So, we've been fortunate enough to not just be attached to tech and SaaS. So we've got a lot of traditional markets as well we operate in. Which has helped us out. So, but yeah, we've been trying to help people weather the storm through 2024, and it's been busy, man. Like today, I had 14 meetings, so I've been at it since like
14. Wow.
Yeah, it was meeting after meeting after meeting, and it's funny because you get like time management when you get busy. So like a meeting will be like how do you have 14 meetings in a day? And it's like I cut them off at 10 minutes. Like.
Oh wow. Okay, so interesting. So what was it? No, let me go into that real quick because I've seen more people do that. Like I know with even my one-on-ones with my direct manager now, Justine, she will actually cut them off and take 10 minutes off at the end. Is that something that was it a strategic choice? I mean, I'm assuming it's a strategic choice, but like what was it that pushed you to start to do that?
Well, the dirty secret is it's all about value. So of
course,
I don't manage my clock on time. I manage it on value because we only have limited time. So
sure. Love that.
Yeah, so the clock, like, it doesn't govern me. I don't even have one. I don't look at the time. I get an invite and I'm like, okay, I got to go to this now, and I go to it and I gauge the value. So it's like, okay, cool. So if you and I are having a conversation and we're talking business, and I'm like, okay, you know what, we're getting off course here. I have other things to do. This is a strictly business relationship. I look at the value of my time and I look at the value of the other person's time. And if the value starts to go into decline, then it's like, okay, you know what, let's jump off and we'll pick up next time when we've got more to talk about.
Sure.
And I think in sales capacity, you really got to do that. Like, I know, like you and I, like we've been talking for 30 minutes now, but it's been fun. We're getting along.
Yeah, I mean that was yeah.
So there is value there, right? Because we're having fun. You know what I mean? But it's like I'm not having fun. I'm not making money. I'm not gaining new clients. I'm not helping my clients. What do I do? Just sit on here to kill the next 15 minutes of a meeting? No, let's hit the road and start making some money.
I love that. I want you to manage all of my meetings moving forward. That sounds great. So you said you had brought it up in the beginning. It's a sales strategic advising capacity. So what goes into that a little bit? Because I think there's different ways that you look at it. So what's your approach to providing strategy from a sales perspective? I'm genuinely curious.
We kind of start at the end. So we look at what the end results are meant to be, and then we work back on like how do we achieve this end result. Now it's kind of like there's a bit of wizardry there, but we look at.
Oh yeah, you don't have to tell me how the sauce is made. That's fine.
No. It's just working it backwards and doing it efficiently, right? Because you think about all the variables in an organization, for example, or what's required to sell a product. Sure. Hey, guess what? You have a $50 a month product that is heavily marketed, and you got all these people producing content out. Yeah, okay, your sales process is going to be a lot different than somebody who has a complex enterprise sale that's $15K a month. Sure. It requires multi-threading. So we look at what the product is and what does that product actually require to be sold. And we work it back from there, and we build the strategies. We put together the processes internal, and they go from basically they hand over from marketing, and we go all the way right into CS. which is kind of cool because there's not a lot of companies out there that are doing that. And
Sure.
and then we do training and coaching. So my training packages are a bit interesting. So we do, we do sales kickoffs. We do, standard bring us in and train. But it's like, dude, I don't have a book on the shelf that I'm going to just come in and train with you. I want to sit down. I want to know your organization. I want to know your people. I'm going to take my baseline and I'm going to tailor it to fit what you actually need. And I'm going to have follow-up sessions after that with your team to make sure that everybody's set up for success. So I guess we become invested in our clients as well. We want them to, I want them to win. I want them to 2X. I want them to 3X because I want them to call me and say, hey, we're having you back in 6 months.
Yeah, which, not for nothing, the more success they have, the more money they're going to pay you. That's sales 101, but it's cool. Yeah, and I want to actually dig into that a little bit because you brought something up that's really cool. You said that you actually do something a little unique, which I actually found is unique, and that's why I want to get your mindset on here. Is like you take it all the way from the selling motion, right, to actually figuring out how marketing is going to actually market this, and then it becomes a change management exercise. What is it about that, right? That it's a change management exercise. We've
100%
discussed that ad nauseum, right?
Yep.
What is it? What's the current, or I guess the better question I'm trying to ask is there a certain trait that you look for in terms of your actual prospects that you look at? Because regardless of whether you're doing it Skrilla or not, I think this is actually a really good exercise in terms of like, how do you actually create cross teaming in general? What is it that you look for to be able to substantiate that and actually feel confident that if you implement a change management exercise, it's going to work? I'd be really curious to hear like what you're looking for to make sure that that's going to be a fit.
I look at
outside of them paying you.
Yeah. There's a couple things, but one that's important is I look at someone who has domain expertise and who is married to their domain expertise, because when somebody has, you obviously know what domain expertise is, anyways. When someone has a true conviction in their domain expertise, they don't think they know everything else around it.
It's true.
So they're much more open. They're like, you know what? I'm really, really good at this, but I'm not really good at that. So let's talk. So they're more open to having conversations. They're more open to listening to advice because, consulting is so weird because when you get it, like, let's say I want to come in and I want to rearrange your house to increase your feng shui, right? I have to know that you're open to it, but I also have to gauge your level of openness because some people will just pay somebody and say, okay, come in, rearrange everything. You know what I mean? My wife ain't gonna happen. You know what I mean? She's gonna want to
sure, yeah.
So like her personality versus my personality would be very different in that case. So it's really understanding that they're well positioned and they're well understanding of their own domain expertise and what their capabilities are, and how willing they are to lean into that change management exercise.
I love it. And it relates with everything I've had too. And like, especially having conversations, right? Like I could have reached out to you and I could have said, hey, let's do the pod, blah, blah, blah. But what happened? You said, no, let's have a conversation first. Right. And it's what you're discussing is building that rapport. And people are like, oh, well, that seems like it's sleazy, it's tactical. It's like, no, like if you're actually going to help people, you have to build some sort of vote of confidence. And that's exactly what it seems like you do. And like, I've always leaned into, I want to find the change agent. I want to find the person who wants to make a difference because they're a lot easier to sell to, not because I actually feel like I'm selling, but more like any advice I give you is going to benefit probably both of us. And it seems like that's aligned to what you're thinking. Yeah.
100%. And it ties back to my previous comment about value.
Sure.
Like my clock is in value increments. So it's like me and you, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I like this guy. I want to have a conversation with him. There's there's a value there, right?
Right. Of course. Yes.
So it's like, and that's something a lot of people don't get, right? Like they don't understand the difference between value and cost, or value and time, or value and work. And it's like, we were talking earlier about maybe if went to a certain event, you'd spend a few extra bucks than you normally would,
right?
And that's because you see the valvalue, right?
Well, because I love this stuff. Yeah, we were talking about wrestling, by the way, full transparency. We were talking about literally professional wrestling like a half hour.
37 minutes, it was okay.
Whatever, no big deal. But you're right though. It's like, and I think you can even look inward sometimes too. And I think what you're kind of discussing is more of like the diamond rule, which is like the golden rule is always treat people how you want to be treated. But I actually look at, I want to treat people how they want to be treated. So like for me, I'm a wrestling fan now. Now, if you said, hey, by the way, Charlotte's going in, you probably wouldn't necessarily care about the price point because I'm a fan of it, right? Exactly. But if I was going to suggest it to you, I'm not going to suggest, oh yeah, go to Raw right? I'd be like,
Yeah.
no, you should go to a pay-per-view if they're going, right? Because that's going to be more valuable to you, right?
Exactly.
But now I know that because we had the conversation. You don't watch it now, I do. So there's differing levels of that, and I think it's just I don't know. At the end of the day, kind of caring about the people that you work with. Am I wrong? Like I feel like that's kind of what it.
But that's sales, right? Like that's time.
Right, yeah.
You know, so like if I go into somebody and say, hey, listen, you're going to pay me $1 million and I'm going to turn your company around and triple your sales. Do you know what I mean? They may not see that value, right? And we don't convey the value through like a unique value proposition. You know what I mean? Like that's a way to catch a little bit of attention. The value is in what knowledge am I going to transfer to you, but what value am I going to be able to transfer to you?
Yeah.
Am I going to free up half of your schedule so you can go do other stuff? A lot of people in sales will say, oh, people don't care about time. And it's like, dude, when you've got a calendar filled for weeks, if you can free up time, you're going to do whatever you can do to do it, because those slots become valuable. There's a financial amount attached to them.
Yeah.
You know,
that I completely agree. Which leads me to, let's go back to what got you to be able to have this conversation to begin with, right? Like, but actually going back, like what actually, got back. So I look back in your experience here. I see sales developer, self-employed. You've been doing that. You did 2016 to 2021 until obviously you had founded Skrilla and decided to do that full time. But your LinkedIn profile is a little, not I'm going to say bare, because obviously there's a lot there, but there's a little bit of a gap from your, studies in Alberta. So what were some of the roles that you had prior to getting into what I would really call sales development or enablement or whatever the case may be? I'd love to, go back to what role for you really kind of either substantiated your way to be able to get there, or roles you had. I would love to just hear kind of your experience there, kind of treating it like an interview, so to speak. Like what'd you do?
Well, when I was a kid, I actually was in retail sales positions. But back when, no, this was when retail sales was actually sales. Like when you actually went up and you talked to people and you were like, hey, what are you looking for? How can I help you? And it was really like setting the foundation for like the customer service aspect of sales.
Sure.
And I did that for a while, and then, did a little bit of studies. When it tried to get into like a technical role, and I got in when I was super young, like 19 or 20.
And what was the role specifically?
I was doing like CNC. I took courses on like CNC programming, drafting, and design. For some reason I wanted to be an engineer. I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. So I tested the waters a bit, and I was at the job for 2 weeks, and my boss is like, you're a pretty good talker. I was like, kind of, like, sure. He's like, how about you do sales too? And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And like,
eye roll, of course.
Dude, just I basically like, I didn't get forced into it. It was like, I had done it previous in a lot of different, like, lower capacity roles. I don't want to make anybody feel bad, but it's like, selling sporting goods and furniture isn't really like,
no, that's not enterprise software sales. No, there's a completely different motion. Absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I got into that, and I was young. I was in my early 20s, and I was selling fabricated equipment packages.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, like, I was selling to enterprise. I was selling to, like oil companies, massive engineering firms, people building skyscrapers. And what we did was we would take these packages on, we'd kind of estimate them, bid them, we'd try and get in, win them, build the relationships, and then we would produce all these like, hundreds of parts to go and build. Like some of the projects I was in, we were building ocean liners.
Really?
Like, yeah, we were supplying all this stuff, but on a small scale. It was a really small company, and I killed it. Like when I started at that company.
Good for you.
Well, when I started there, they did 5.7 million the first year I was there in sales. So small company, we'd get one big sale or 2 big sales in a year, and then we'd have a bunch of filler work.
Sure.
And I started going out, and I had like, I'll say it like this, it was my playground. It was my playground because they didn't have a process in place. There was no real sales role. I was the first person put into sales in the company, and I killed it, man. Like first year, like my first year after that, that kind of transition period, I did like 7 million in sales myself.
Wow. And what was the just to kind of level set here for people who might actually be in sales or breaking into, what was the average deal size? Do you know offhand?
I couldn't say, because like we would have projects, like there would be a rush project, let's say a vessel exploded up in a pulp and paper mill, and they're like, we need this,
Sure.
we need to patch this up, we need a tank built, it could have
Okay,
been
so it could
25
be
grand.
5 figures. Okay, fair enough.
We'd have other packages that were, in the six figures as well. So, we get up to like 160, 180,000. But I ended up like pushing, because I started reading a lot about business development.
Okay.
Business development back in the early 2000s, it was not telemarketers sitting on a phone. Like business development was like, you were grinding, you were out there, you were going to events, you were going to golf tournaments.
It was like kind of the outside sales of old, right? Like kind of.
It really was.
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah. But you were also looking for new opportunities. So I was going in and I was visiting different facilities. I was talking to different engineers. And I started realizing, I'm like, wow, we've got the equipment to do this. You know what I mean? Like we could make this stuff too. Why don't you let us try and quote it? Why don't you let us try and bid it? And we'd build the relationships, go through the quality procedures, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And year after that, this killer year in sales, my boss is like, look, let's hire more people. I want to blow up the company. I was like, okay, sick. So he's like, we're going to make you the business development manager.
Of course they are. Duh.
And I was like, I'm like 24. You know what I mean? Like I was a kid.
Well, hey, sometimes it happens. I actually interviewed a guy. He was a VP of sales at 26, more Esseline. Like, I mean, it's the same type of thing. And he has his own. He's a founder of a company as well. So it seems like there's a similar path here. When you get pushed to like some sort of sales thing when you're younger, you just kind of.
Well, and it's funny. You like, and it like I don't know. I'm trying to say this like casually, but it's like. Sometimes where the river takes you is where you're supposed to be.
Sure.
The people I find like that resist it or force it are usually not successful. You kind of almost just got to go with it because you're going to take a beating along the way, but you're going to learn.
Yeah.
Right. And the more of a beating you take, the more you're going to learn, But we have like, I don't know. I mean, it's a shame to see and a shame to have to say this out loud, but we're seeing a lot now where, people and there's a difference between bullying and trying to like help somebody through constructive criticism.
No, go through this. I think this is a good topic to bring up. Yeah, go ahead.
Back then, like you should have heard the shit people would say. Like not just people you work with, but your customers, your competitors. Like,
oh man, my dad sold life insurance his entire life. I saw it. Oh my God. Like,
dude, crazy. People on LinkedIn, their face would melt. Like if they heard this shit.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong about that. Yeah.
And you know what? It was funny because like, you were like, that was the difference is there was people who took it personal and they flunked out. And there was the people who looked at them and said, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to do better than you. Wow. And guess what they did? Yeah. They did better. And that's kind of the sales mindset. But anyways, so I got my first $1 million contract when I was at this company with a very large midstream oil company. Okay. It was awesome. I ended up talking to them and I went through this huge sales process, but because I was studying business development and it was kind of fresh, but it wasn't really talked about often. Like you didn't have the internet. You had to go on, read books. You had to go to events to meet people. I was like building my own plan at that stage. I was like, okay, so what works? Because like I was driven by money, you know what I mean? And at the time,
I mean, you're in sales naturally. It's kind of how it works. Like most people trying to break into tech sales or whatever are kind of driven by some sort of monetary thing.
I was even with these multi-million-dollar quotas, and I didn't even really have like a set quota. It was like let's just do more than we did last month.
Yeah, because it was a bunch of engineers at the top being like, yeah, we just need you to.
Yeah, but I was making, dude, I was making $40,000 a year.
Oh wow! So you were making a ton of money for the company, but you weren't getting cut. Yeah, I guess.
No, I wasn't. I mean, but that industry, the margins can be razor thin, right? Like you could be 3-4%, but I mean 3-4% on $1 million. I mean, it's not a lot.
No, that's not. I mean?
So actually, for me, I guess I got paid. What's that, sorry, buddy?
I just wanted to actually see what the actual amount is on that. Like, what is point? Yeah, let's say 3% times $1 million. How much is that?
It's $30,000.
$30,000. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then you got to pay out everyone who's did the work and so on. Yeah, you're getting like what? Maybe $1,000.
Well, and that's finished margin, right? So that would be calculated cost. So, so yeah, you paid everybody else. Company made so they did $1 million in sales, but they only did $30,000. Like if you heard a company now, you're like these little solopreneurs and stuff. Like I did $1 million this year, and it's like,
I have to. Yeah, I have to put that out too. I love this new trend that's happening that is catching everyone for like, oh yeah, I did all these millions in sales, and it's like, yeah, that's gross. Did we talk? Yeah, that's gross. Now we need to talk about what they're going to net. Now we need to talk about, oh, wait, they're probably a 1099 employee now. Oh, wait, they probably have their own health insurance. Oh, wait, they probably have this. Guess what? Yeah. You're probably paying them, right? To recoup all the money they might have lost in this pursuit. It's just very funny to me how, and I think this is a good topic to bring up as well. And as a side note of just like, don't believe everything you see. Even this podcast included. Take everything we say with a grain of salt. But like, sales can be fickle. Like it's, you can hit massive gains, but in reality, it's like you really, and I think you're alluding to this as well. And we're going to continue your combo. Is like, you really have to understand the product or service that you're providing to understand how much you can actually make on the end. Right. Like, cause I've seen guys, sell $1 million, $2 million to $3 million, whatever contracts, and they'll kill it 1 year and then they can't land another one for like 5. And then it's just like, well, now you're right. But if you sit there and talk about the time when they did it and you say, well, here's my advice and how I did it at the time, it's kind of what we're seeing now, the Instagrams of the world, the Facebook ads of the world, where it's like, oh yeah, watch how I can make all this money sitting out. YouTube automation. Like, what even is that? I don't even know.
Stupid. And it's like, look at me. I spent 20 hours on LinkedIn today. I only slept for 4. And it's like, okay, well, how much money did you make? And it's like, well,
and you're driven by that, and you admitted that right out of the gate. You're like, I'm driven by money, right? Other people won't be like, I don't really care that much. That's fine. You're probably not going to succeed in sales. Like,
but they're bullshit. Like most of the people, and I know people who are happy making like 70 grand a year, and they're grinding and they're working hard, and they have really nice lives. And I don't fault anyone for that. But it's like, if you're going to try to tell somebody how to make more money, you better be making more money.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and it's kind of the harsh reality of kind of the world we live in, where it's like you can mask your incompetence with really flashy things and whatever. Like, like people have kind of talked to me like, haven't you wanted to like make your stuff pop a little bit more? Because I always put out the videos and I've seen them from time to time, and it's like, I don't care to do that. I had a thought, I recorded it, I packaged it up, took me 15 minutes, and it's out. Right? Like that's plenty for me, right? But I also too, I'm not making money on LinkedIn. I'm a principal solution engineer at Salesforce. I got a salary, guys. Like I don't need to sit here and grind and do all that. So it's really interesting when you're talking about like the perspective and so on and so forth. I know we're kind of like bashing a little bit, but hey, it's a podcast. Like why not?
It's not. I don't think it's bashing. I think it's
it's more.
I feel bad for some of these people. Like like I see some people that's like, I look through their experience and it's like 3 years as an SDR. They have 4 different jobs. So I'm like, okay, so cool. So you basically, let's remove ramp time from your work experience. You have 9 months in actual work experience.
Yeah, and it's tough because
you're telling people how to go and be this gangster seller.
Yeah, my god, I've done that so many times. I do that too.
Who's stupid enough to listen to this shit? So those people could be very successful if they actually got outside their head and they listened to somebody who has some experience and who's been there and done it before. And it's like, those people would be super successful, but they're following this clout chasing on LinkedIn or TikTok or whatever. And it's like, man, like dudes, like, like think business minded. You might've seen, like I talk about business acumen and commercial acumen.
Oh yeah. That's what I want to,
yeah, this is part of it. Like if you want to grow sales, you have to understand business. I don't give a shit who you are. Like, yeah, okay, you can be a really smooth talker in a sales cycle that's, like 4 minutes selling fur coats or something and make some really good money for sure. And you don't really have to have a lot of business acumen. But the people who excel in sales overall are people who understand, oh, CT, he's a CEO, he's a founder, he runs a company. What's important to him? Well, as a business owner, I'm pretty sure profitability is important to him.
Yeah.
And what's going to help him to become more profitable? Well, you know what? He just said he took 14 meetings today. What if we could find a way to help him do this? But find a way that actually does that and then convey the message to me properly in a respectful way. Put me a commercial proposal together and I'll probably buy your shit. And most people who are in my position, which is where a lot of, these entry-level sellers are trying to reach out to, that's how you speak to us. You don't you don't speak to me with
what I did. I reached out to you flat out and I said, dude, I love your stuff. I'd love to have a conversation with you. You said, yeah, let's chat. Like it was very, but I think to your point though, is there's a level of confidence with that. Right. But I love that you're bringing this all up because that's who this community is. This community is people who have been hoodwinked by people like that too. Right. Who have kind of gone into these things and they've done it and they're like, man, it's not really working. It's like, well, yeah, because they gave you the selling motion, but they didn't teach you how to actually think. And it goes back to what we just talked about is listening with intent. Like, yeah, you can listen to be chummy and, you know, just like we did, like we talked about, we shot the shit for like a half hour. Yeah. But here's what I got out of that. I relate to you very well. If I found myself in a, are you still in Alberta right now, or where are you at? Canada?
Yeah, I'm all over, man. I have so many projects everywhere that I never stop.
It's all over. But if I found myself in the same city as you, I know I could have a beer with you, right? And now I know, hey, if we want to talk about something, and now I can start thinking about that because I'm knowing what matters to you by doing things that associate to me. And I just love that you're highlighting all of that because all you pretty much said was fill the need.
Fill the need. And respect the value.
Yes.
Right. Because you and me will go for a beer and shoot the shit and it'll be a valuable time. Right. And,
for both of us
mutually and there's respect there. And I think a lot of people, they just don't get that. Right. And it's really sad because sales isn't going anywhere. AI is not going to kill it. I've seen AI. I've put it to work and I'm like, dude, this is the best these computers got. I'm not worried. Bring on Skynet. You know, like
that's so funny. No, but it's really interesting that you bring that up though, and I want to kind of tie this back a little bit because you said you had tried to go down an engineering path before. I want to ask you a question. You tell me yes or no and why. Would you say that going down this engineering path, albeit very small, would it say that it helped you think about things more objectively, and as a result, it helped you be a better seller? Yes or no?
I'm a different kind of analytical mind by nature, so
Go ahead, man. I love that answer. Go on.
I couldn't and I've taught a lot of fucking tons of engineers how to actually become salespeople. Because I straddled I was on both sides.
That's why I asked the question, because I can tell like you're a little analytical though. Like you're very objective about things, which means you can start to actually think about where the problems lie and how to solve them. Objective people solve problems. Non-objective people identify them. So I'm asking you, right? Like you said you're analytical. Please go on. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No. And a different kind of analytical, right? Like because I think engineering is kind of like software engineering and all other engineering is completely different. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
The regulations required by mechanical and structural and civil engineers is completely different. So they have a lot more stress on them. But it's like, what's going to break this machine? So the Apollo mission that, exploded, years and years ago, you know what took it down? Do you know what caused the explosion?
I could bullshit you, but I don't recall.
A fucking Parker O-ring.
All right, let's clarify here.
Just Google Parker O-ring.
That's what I'm doing right now. Parker O-ring. Okay, here we go. This is I'm looking at. Get out of here. Something that you could buy for, depending on the size. I'm looking at one right here. Weber Service Parts. That's a fast tagger for $1.10. So I mean, obviously it was more of an industrial, but like that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Crazy.
But so what do you think those engineers and shit did after that?
Oh, they literally put every process and procedure in QA check out the wazoo to check every single one of those O-rings and anything that thing's touching. They had to have.
Exactly. And they refined it down. So when the next person came in, it wasn't this huge, reinventing the wheel process. Yes. It was like, oh, we'll create a standard specification for this, right? And, that's how my mind works. So it's like my first real big sales job, I had a playground. I could fucking do whatever I wanted. Do you know what I mean? Like it was,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, it really was like, considering it was the lower end of the wage, like I could do whatever I wanted. And, I used that as my playground and I documented that process like fucking 18 years ago. And I had kept documenting it ever since because I'm thinking in that sense of like, okay, refine the process, find the way that works. Okay, go. And then, I'd get the next snag. Okay, refine, next snag, refine, next snag. So it's like, you're a blade and you will get dull. So you have to continually be sharpened. It's just
that's
the way
a great line. That's a great line. You need to write that down. If that's not in your requirements doc that you have, you should write that down.
That's part of my requirements. Hey, are you aware that you're a SV35N steel blade? You know, like, but people like most people aren't thinking like that, right? They're thinking go to the next level. And I'm like,
yes,
dude, you know how you get to the next level? By getting past the next problem.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like I knew I liked you. Like, and I knew that just from the
post. Well, it's video games, man. How do you move on in a campaign? You get past the next problem.
You get past it, or what you do is you build your skill. Like, if it's an RPG game, what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and you're going to skill up and you're going to whatever. And what it really boils down to, and this is what I've always said when people want to break into anything tech in general, is I'm like, learn how to be a functional analyst. And people are like, why? And I'm like sitting here going, well, here's what it's going to do. You're going to be presented a problem, and then you're going to have to actually think through how a solution would be designed before you do a lick of any presentation. Yeah. And they go, what? And I'm like, I like, my education was that. Like, I have an IT management degree, but essentially what they did is Syracuse, they turn out project managers. And then what do you do? You go to some big four consulting firm. Ergo, here's my career. But what I learned in that was I'm going to be presented a problem, and I'm going to think through, okay, I need to get to a point that I can stop asking why. Because then when I can stop asking why, there's my standardized process. There we go. Right. And then I think about every role I've had has just been me doing that. So people are like, how do you actually understand the problem? Like in an automation context. And I go, well, they're going to give me something that's not integrated today. And I'm going to say, okay, what are your current steps today? Just to make sure it's feasibly possible. But then I'm flipping the script immediately and being, yeah, you want that? Is that process optimized right now? And they go, well, wait, that's a different question. I go, no, it's not. It's the same thing. Why are you doing it that way now? What's the reason behind that? And just like you said, now we can tie it to the Apollo example, right? Exactly. You're doing it that way, but do you actually have your checks and balances in there? Are you adhering to your business requirements, right? And then everyone goes, that business requirements thing, what is that? It's like everything is a process, and there's a reason why you do it, right? So I'm sitting here being like, oh, you want to become more engineering-like? Learn how to be a functional analyst first, and then all you do is learn how to apply a technology that does that exact thing. And you're saying the same thing. It's a different way to get there, but it's the same thing. And it's just crazy to me. And I'm sure you experience it too with people. They're just like, how do you just stop trying to solve another adjacent symptom? Solve the root cause of a problem. I don't know. I just wanted to just go on that because
the problem with sales is a people business, right? So it's like of
course,
you got to be like. And engineers always had a hard time jumping into sales because they would go straight to analytical process and nobody wanted to deal with them.
No, because you have to.
This guy's living in the mathematical world. I can't talk to them.
Bingo. Yeah, and that's why I feel like, not for nothing. Like I don't know many sales engineers that start at like an entry level sales engineer and become a principal in 5 years, but I was able to do it because of what you're describing. Was I started analytical, and the coaching was you're too technical. Stop doing that. And I go, oh, you want me to actually sit there and be a process improvement guy? They're like, yeah. And because then guess what? Once I walk in, and I'm sure you know this too, and it's part of your sales coaching, right? Keep me honest here, right? I'm bullshitting you here, but like when you can prove to the business that you actually have a lick of understanding of what the acumen is and how you can effectively solve the problem, you earn the right to have that technical discussion.
100%.
And I'm just like, that's it.
And I'll give you my verbiage. It's called peer positioning.
I've been doing that for as long as I can possibly remember, like in everything I've ever done, ever.
Exactly. And that's business, right? It's like, I want to deal with peers. I want to deal with someone like my website sucks, right? And I hire these people and whatever. And they're like, what do you want us to do? And I'm like, I want you to build me a website. Like, I hired you to build me a website. Well, how do you want it? And I'm like, you're not a fucking web designer. You're now a computer operator, because I'm basically telling you the inputs. I need you to do to tell yourself the inputs, because I'm not that guy. And I think
and it's also too, I can push back on you a little bit and say, well, if you knew exactly what you wanted, you probably could have helped them a little bit too. And that's probably a learning moment where we're both like, oh, okay. But what you described is literally why every project fails. You're literally describing someone had an idea and said, I want this, but didn't have a way to really get there. And then people who knew how to get there didn't know what the requirements were. Oh my God. It's crazy.
But communication, right? So it's like, when you're communicating to somebody, and this is another problem in sales. I suffered this. I did it once on my website, and these guys butchered my website, and I went and figured it out myself. I was like, whatever, I'll just like make it work.
That's just
like,
grit. Yeah.
Like a 1998 website. And I was like, whatever, websites don't sell anyway. But that's the thing. It's like this salesperson is telling me all this shit. Oh yeah, no, they're using the lingo and blah, blah, blah. I don't really operate in that space. So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I need somebody, your price is good, just fire it up, get it done. So they got me on timeline. They got me with some verbiage. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden it's like, when's this going to be delivered? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? Like,
you don't know. You don't have a timeline? Now,
yeah,
mind you,
project coordination ability here. Like, how long is this going to take you to do? You originally said it's going to take this amount of time. And it's like, oh, okay, boom. And then here, well, what do you want us to put on it? I'm like, everything I told you, and it's like, so it's like, I have to look things back at me and say, okay, I can't blame them first. I have to blame myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then I go through and I write this like procedure, and I'm like, I want this, and 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 I give it to them. They're still asking me questions, and I'm like, okay, dude, if I knew how to answer those questions, I would have done this for myself.
No, it's a good point that you bring that up too, and I want to kind of tie this and then put a bow on this, because I'm sure we could probably go forever. But you gave me, oh my God, tons of nuggets. But what you're describing though is, I think you're describing how to be a better communicator and be more effective as a problem solver, because you said, hey, I want all of these things. Now, mind you, that may not necessarily have been what those people are exposed to or been coached to, or how to give requirements, because as well as I do, right? If you're in some sort of professional services capacity, they're probably not guys like me and you. The guys like me and you are probably the ones who sold the original bill of goods, but they're not the ones that are going to be on your project, right? So I think if you find yourself trying to break in, I'm giving this more as like to the audience in general, because you're describing what I learned what not to do years ago. Right? Is if you find yourself in a position where your business stakeholder is not giving you the proper requirements, teach them how to give them to you.
100%.
Right? Because you know what you need to hear. So like, let's say it was a feature where you said, oh, I need some sort of ability for people to just enter payment information, right? You should naturally be thinking about, okay, you want to be able to enter the payment information. We need to build validation rules into the address and blah, 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 whole nine. But then there's also the payment processing aspect and so on and so forth. What it really boils down to is learn everything about that business, the ins and outs, and help your business stakeholder coach you so you can effectively show them exactly how to do it. And I think a lot of people struggle when they get into even a pre-sales capacity, because now they're asked to demonstrate a specific feature or functionality and then tie it to a business problem. And I'm just like, well, just like you said, well, if I need to teach you to do this, I'll just do this myself. Create the need. If they give you something, show them how to do it. And then guess what? You're going to get everything in spades, because I guarantee when you ask someone to do some work for you and they killed it, what did you do? You gave them a high five, blah, 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 and you came back for their business. Why? Because even if they weren't the most like they didn't have all the expertise in the world, they built a good relationship with you. They listened to what you wanted, and they did the best they could, adhering to what they had. And I bet you if there was scope creep, they were transparent about that, right?
100%.
So I just bring all that up to say, like, if you're in this community and you're trying to break into sales, all we're saying is learn how to actually effectively solve the problem that you're selling.
Dude, 100%.
And I know that sounds
it's not just the problem. You got to like
I know we can dig deeper.
They got to. That's where commercial acumen comes in. It's like, dude, you got to know, like if you call me, I don't give I want to know that you know the product, because I'm going to ask you questions, and if you start to miss, then I'm like, okay, is this new? Does this work? Is it effective? Like I have too many questions to ask. I'm out. There's no value there. But it's like when we get into that meeting, when we're sitting there and we're talking about maybe penning a deal, it's like, guys, like you need to show me that you know more about what you're doing than I do, or that I can in a short amount of time. But you also have to know why I would need this in my business.
Yeah. Why?
And where it fits in the wheel of commerce, right? And it's like we're all in the wheel of commerce. And in order for it to keep spinning and for you to stay on it, you have to provide a value, period. I don't care what it is. There's a value attached to it. So if you come rolling into my space and we get on a meeting or we get together and you have a product or you have a service or whatever that you can't clearly communicate, that the value is seems unable to be realized, and that you don't, and you communicate that basically you don't understand my business, and not only my business, but where my business fits in that wheel of commerce,
Yep.
your chances of getting a deal are slim to none, like very slim to none. And most people on that level will think that. I mean, yeah, if someone likes you and you're funny, they'll give you some more time, but eventually time runs out and people go back managing on value. And then they say, hey, listen, dude, really like what you're talking about. I think this will work for me. But we're not going to cut a deal right now. Call me back.
Yeah, I need you to be able to execute. Yeah, I get it. I understand, and and that's where, like, to me, it's really interesting because I feel like, especially from an SE perspective, right? Like people go, oh, the soft skills are important. I'm like, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Now, mind you, I think we have a different perspective. I think we might be in the market. It helps, absolutely. Yeah, but I'm also sitting here saying, if you've got a really, really good account executive who can quarterback a deal, you can use that SE very well, even if they don't necessarily communicate much either. Because if they can actually provide the proper demo and not even say necessarily the right things, but hey, this is tied to this specific thing. Here's how we do it. And that's all they do. That's almost just as effective, if not more, at least in my opinion, because but I'm also too, I think I also have this level of, I think there's a level of privilege there because I've pretty much seen the full gambit and I've always sold technologies that I've implemented before. So like, I think I have just a different knowledge base than most, but would you agree with that? Would you disagree? I'm just curious as we round this out here.
No, I agree with it. I mean, it's, and like I said, it's different for everybody. Like I was more cut out for sales than I would have been to be an engineer. I would be a terrible engineer, but because I know enough about it, I could roll in that realm. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You know, like absolutely. You want to talk about Bernoulli's principles and how they affect fucking, you know, vortices sheds downstream in a pipeline? Sure. Like we can talk about that. I can explain it all, but I don't know how to put it into process. You know, I don't enjoy it. You know, so the reality is like, and when we're, especially if we're working with companies that have engineers or sales engineers, like, you know, we can bring them into the fold quite quickly and get them up to speed, where it's like some of those engineers do need more work on the soft skills than others. It just depends what, you know, it depends on what sandbox they came from, really. Like, you know, if they were, you know, in the sandbox with 19 other people and, you know, they were talking about something their whole lives, sure, fine. But if they were in there by themselves taking apart Tonka trucks, I mean, they're lacking some of those skills, right? And it's not a hit. It's just, you know, we know that people who've been, you know, less social in life, they obviously lack social skills. They lack this. Skills. You know, it's just part of life. And there's even, and that's not to say that they can't communicate or they can't speak, but they don't have that EQ. They don't have they haven't accessed their total EQ potential, right? And I think that that's a huge part on sales, especially as a sales engineer, because if you're dealing with someone who doesn't understand engineering and you can't convey that message to them in a way that they can understand it, they're like, what is this guy talking about? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Yeah. And that's why, like, I find, you know, and to kind of wrap a bow on this, and I think this is going to be your piece of advice that you're going to leave everyone with, is kind of like, you almost have to learn how to think technically to get out of that. Like I spent really kind of my college career going closer to technology and then working as a technology advisory and at consultant. And then I went full blown RPA development, which, hey, if you're an actual coder, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a coder. I'm a low code tool guy. Right. But I realized I don't want to be down that. But just like you said, I learned enough, and probably more than you did, right, on these concepts that now when I need to extrapolate it out, I can have the conversation with the business guy, but you can also grab me your procurement guy. You can give me your security guy. You can give me your IT head, and I'm going to be able to have the same outcome, completely different conversation. So I bring all that to say, right. And like I said, I think it's going to be your advice. I might be, you know, jumping the shark here a little bit. If people want to follow the CT path, what's the one piece of advice to shift their mindset to get there?
There's two pieces. This is the yin and the yang.
Sure. Go ahead, man.
Okay.
I set you up a little bit, but
it's the yin and the yang, right? Because you need an ego, but you need to balance your ego, right? And you need to balance that ego by knowing that you don't know everything.
Sure.
But being comfortable knowing that you probably know more than the person next to you.
Okay.
You know, like that's really what it comes down to. Like, because if you go in, I guess we'll say like we'll pull some Greek philosophy out here. I can't teach you anything. I can only cause you to think. So if you don't think, if you don't think, you're basically gonna fail. And it's like, so you have to kind of operate. You know, there's those two. You know, you got the yin and the yang. You have to walk that line between them. If you can't walk that line, then you're done. Like you're gonna have a really hard time.
In sales, right? Like you're
in sales. Because you'll go in, I mean, and I've gone into places where I'm hot shit. I'm a smooth talker. I've got my presentation down pat. And I walk in and there's that one guy or that one girl or that one person who knows 10 times more than I do. And all they want to do is just poke holes in your bag.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all they're doing is they're just poking holes in your game. And you have to know when you can push and when you have to receive the push. And I think a lot of people, you push that person the wrong way, it's going to derail everything.
And
because they know more than you. And now you're done. And you got to be flexible. Like they see the sword. I'm a martial arts guy, and got a black belt. Ran a school in my free time. Like, and I'll tell you, I'll leave it with this. Bruce Lee. Okay, he says, "Be water. Water can flow. Water can crash. If you take water and put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup." So be water. And it's like salespeople need to learn when they need to flow and when they need to crash.
Sure.
And that's the reality of it. And don't get hung up on one way. We'll go back to Bruce Lee again and his Jeet Kune Do martial art. He took all these all the 100 styles or however many there were in China at the time of all the different kung fus, and he took the best parts of all of them and made his own. And everyone was pissed off at him. But he was wildly successful and he was beating everybody, all the traditional Wing Chun masters. And it's like, well, you can't do that. And it's like, well, why not? This is how I win. And it's like, so you have these salespeople who are stuck on one thought of one school of thought. And then they go into the foreign territory and they get their ass handed to them. And it's like, dude, be water. You need to be flexible. You need to have all the arrows in your quiver and you need to be a Swiss Army knife. It's just the way it is.
Have an ego and check it, baby. I love it.
Yep.
I think we're done at this. Like I said, right. We can go on forever, do CT. It's been an absolute. Yeah, exactly. Next time for sure. I'm sure we'll probably run this.
I keep cutting you off on purpose just to drag it out. But anyways, go ahead.
Oh no, I did. It's funny. I did. It's staying in. I don't give a shit. But I've appreciated the convo so much. I really, really do think the people who have listened to this and gotten to this point really will benefit from this. I think this was it was really us just kind of talking, true shop, right? We're both in a selling capacity. You're obviously coaching salespeople. I'm in the sales engineering capacity, but we're two halves of the same whole. It's been an absolute great convo. If people wanted to connect with you, if you search CT Falk on LinkedIn, I'm sure you would be more than willing to accept a connection, assuming it's not like pitch slapping or anything like that, because I know you're going to turn that down immediately. But would you be open to that? DMs, whatever? Yeah, shoot me a DM, and anybody wants to just have a chat. Like I didn't even know this was a podcast opportunity or anything. It was just somebody reached out to me and says, "Hey man, I'm in sales, want to chat." Okay, let's chat. We're all on the same team. We're all on the same team. Yep. That's it. And then also too, if you want to check out the website, which actually looks pretty slick now, is it skrillosales.com? Yeah, that's it. skrillosales.com. Cool. And you can get my phone number on there too, man. Cool. Awesome. Well, dude, CT, absolutely awesome discussion. Thank you so much. And with that, I think I'm going to round us out here. And thank you for watching KJ's Corner as part of the bigger I'm Breaking Into Tech umbrella. And we'll see y'all next time. Cheers, guys. Peace, man. Take care.